For lesson 1.5, we're going to work with computations with percents. So a percent is a number as a fraction or a part of 100, because percent is always going to be out of 100. So if I say I have 80% of people did this, that means 80 out of 100 people, or 80 out of every 100 people, or 100% of people. So the group would be 100%, would be the whole group, 80% of that. Okay, markup. It would be an increase in price. So for example, if a company buys a box of cereal, they buy all the cereal for a certain price, and then they put it in their store and they increase the price to sell it to customers so that they can make a profit off it also. That would be a markup. And then the opposite then is a marked down or a discount, and that's a decrease in price. An example of this would be like if you go shopping and you see that something is on sale, it costs less money than it used to. That's a marked down or discount. Tax would also be an example of the markup that we had talked about. Tax, tip, those are also markups. Sale, discount, those are markdowns. All right, and then we mentioned this in the last lesson a little bit, but in mathematics, that word of, if you say of, it typically means we're going to multiply. And before we get into some of this, I want to just make a note over here that in order to change a percent to a decimal, so let's say we have 32%, and I want to write that as a decimal. So you move the decimal 2 places, and that's because it's out of that 100, we need that makes it 2 places. So if there is no decimal, you add one at the end. You move it 2 places to the left, and that tells you where the new decimal is going to be at. So then 32% is 0.32 as a decimal. Okay, so we can use that to help us on these problems. So number 1, we're solving each percent problem. Okay. So 30%, well, that's 0.30, or you can just say 0.3 of 40. Of tells me I'm going to multiply. Of 40 is. So I can make it on here. Is means equal in math. So for example, I say 2 plus 2 is 4. That's because 2 plus 2 equals 4. So equals what number? Well, I don't know, so I'm going to use an x or an n or whatever variable you want to use to represent that unknown number. And then you may use a calculator for this. There's a calculator on your computer. There's calculus in the classroom. If you go to your resource folder on Schoology, there is the calculator similar to iLearn that you can use. And I'm just going to type in 0.3 or 0.30 times 40. And we get 12. So 30% of 40 is 12. Number 2, 84 is, so equals, what percent? Well, I don't know, so I'll use a variable, of times 70. This one's a little bit different. On number 1, that variable was already by itself. I could just go ahead and do this computation. It was already together. My numbers aren't together. So we're not going to do solving equations until the next unit, but we can refresh our memory from last year a little bit. If I want to undo this, do the opposite. So this is x times 70. To undo this, to solve it, we do the opposite. Opposite of multiplying by 70 is to divide by 70. But you have to do it on both sides to keep everything balanced. That becomes 70 over 70 is 1x, which is just x, equals. And then in our calculus, we can put in 84 divided by 70, and we get 1.2. But the tricky part is here, is it asks us for a percent, but we just have a decimal now, 1.2. So I have to take 1.2 and turn it into a percent. So off to the left-hand side here, we did percent to decimal, but we can also show an example of how do we go from a decimal to a percent. We go the other way. So we'll just go ahead and use our example. We have a 1.2, and I need to get it into a percent. So we move the decimal left up here with the 32 to turn it into a decimal. Well, now I already have a decimal, so I'm going to undo that, so we'll go backwards. So we have 1, 2 to the right then, and you want to put a 0 for a placeholder, so we end up with 120%. And anytime you have a decimal bigger than 1, it's going to be over 100%. So the number 2 is 120%. So always check the looks. What is it asking? If it's asking for a percent, make sure you turn it into a percent when you are done. Okay, number 3, what number, I don't know, equals 0.5%. So I'm going to do some scratch work over here. 0.5, that's a percent. I need to turn it into a decimal so I can do my calculation here. So we showed in our work, up above here that if I want to turn a percent into a decimal, we're going to move the decimal left 2 spots. Okay, so I'm going to move my decimal left 2 spots, add a 0 for a placeholder, so I get 0.005. So 0.5% is 0.005. And then there's that word of, so I'm multiplying 65. Now my numbers are already together, so I can just put that right in the calculator, 0.005 times 65, and we get 0.325. I'm just looking for what number, so there is my number. Number 4, 5 equals what percent, I don't know, let's use X, of times 10. Okay, again, just like number 2, I need to get that X all by itself. I need to get this 10 over with a 5. Opposite of multiplying by 10 is to divide by 10. And there's our X. 5 divided by 10, put that in the calculator if you need to. And that is going to be 0.5. But again, if we look, it says what percent. So I have to turn that into a percent now. So we go back up to our thing. How do we turn a decimal into a percent? We move the decimal right 2 places. Okay, so 1, 2, put a 0 for a placeholder. So I get 0.50%. Well, it doesn't make sense to have a 0 in front, so I can just go ahead and get rid of that now. So we end up with 50%. Okay. Number 5, you go on a shopping trip and your merchandise total, so that's the stuff you buy, totals $76.60. How much will you end up paying after including the 7% sales tax? Okay, so I can do this one of 2 ways. I can take 78.6 and multiply it by 7%, which 7% is 0.07 as a decimal. So I can multiply 78.60 times 0.07. I'm going to get a small number. Well, a small number is not going to tell me my new total number, how much I'm going to end up paying. Well, I'm going to end up paying more after I add tax. So then I would have to add back in the cost of my merchandise. So when we do problems like this, where we're adding tax or tip or things like that, the shortcut is, and we can write the shortcut over here. Okay. For a markup, you're always going to take 100% plus the markup percent, and that's what you're going to multiply by. It's going to save you a step and some time. So I'm going to pay for my whole merchandise. I'm going to pay for 100% of what I'm buying plus 7%. So we actually want to do 107%. That means I'm paying for all of this plus the 7% sales tax. And then turn that into a decimal. 1, 2. So that's 1.07. And then if we multiply that by our total of 78.60, we get $84.10. If you had done it separate, 78.6 times 7%, and then added that into the 78.6, you'll get that same answer. This just gets us there a little bit faster. So we can do something similar. Number 6, Martin bought an Xbox on sale. So on sale means he's going to pay less money. It was on sale for $276. Oh, okay. So then he marks it up. So he's going to go back and sell it now. So he paid $275. He marks it up by 25% and resells it. So he's going to charge the whole $275 plus an additional 25%. So he's going to charge the 100% of what he paid for it plus an additional 25%. So that's 125% altogether. So turn that into a decimal. 1, 2. So I get 1.25. And I'm going to multiply that by the $275 he paid. So that means that he is now going to charge $343.75 for that Xbox that he only paid $275 for. So he's making a 25% profit. Okay. And number 7, a store bought an item for $35. They are selling it for $42. What is the percent markup for the item? All right, so this one's a little bit backwards. They're not giving us a percent, they're giving us the new total. So we actually have a formula that we can use for this one. To find the percent of markup, you can take, so let's say, I'm going to add that over here, percent markup or discount. It works either way. We're going to take how much did it change by, divide by the original amount. So this changed by, well, there's 42 now minus the 35 he bought it for. So let's see, borrow 12 minus 5, 7, 3 by 3, 0. So it changed in price by $7. So my change is it changed by $7. The original price it was $35. And then I can put that in my calculator and I get 0.2. Well, I need to turn it into a percent. So we said we're going to move that decimal 2 places over. So 1, 2, add a 0 for a placeholder. So we get 20%. So basically it's saying that 7 is 20% of 35. So he increased it by 20%. If there's any other notes you want to make on the left, go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and write a summary at the bottom if you need to.